Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us once again. My name is Faith.
My name is Jennifer.
My name is Anne.
And we are Out of Band. So today we have a special guest, Eben, who's an incident responder, and we would like him to walk us through a day in his life. So Eben, will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. So my name is Eben Louw. I'm the European lead for our X-Force Incident Response our business unit or component within IBM. Yeah, and as I said before the chit chat before we started recording, is I really hope that you guys are not going to be surprised when you hear how crazy hours we work. But let's see what comes.
Part of the
Spill the
business.
beans.
Yeah.
That's great to have you.
So maybe let's kick it off with the most generic question, actually. What do you do as an incident responder, as a cybersecurity incident responder?
Yeah, I would say maybe there's two things that we got to look at if you take incident responder, because I mean there's two types, I would say. One, you get the incident responder that does, I would say, typical SOC review. So you in front of your screens every day, and all you do is you look at alerts coming in and you're triaging them. So triaging is looking at the most relevant data that you need to understand the alert itself, and to determine, is the event or the alert something that should be turned into an incident and should follow an escalation path that needs to be investigated. And that's typically what we call, eyes on glass the whole time. That's the one incident responder. I've done that for a couple of months as part of a project, and I vowed never, ever again. And there's many reasons why I won't do that again, unless absolutely pressure to do that. And then on the other hand, you have more what our team is, and that's what I also do, is more digital forensics / incident response, where we are more the guys that would be called upon in a crisis situation or an emergency where a client says, listen, we've been impacted by an incident and it's just beyond our control. We cannot deal with this ourselves. We don't have the tooling for it. Can you guys help us investigate?
Yeah.
So that's the two different incident response roles, if I can call it that. So our team is then a little bit different in the sense that we don't like clock in to come and review alerts every day. It's a little bit different for us. If you are assigned to an incident or a case, like we say case work, then it's fine. Then it's the same. You come to work, you clock in, you do your tasks, you hand over at the end of the day to, let's say, one of your colleagues in another geo, if that is the case. Otherwise, yeah, you just end the day, probably 10 o'clock at night, and you sleep for 2-3 hours. No, I'm just kidding. Then you would start the next day again. If you then look at the other spectrum, which is more my side of the incident response world, is I also have to do the scoping of incident triggers. So when, for instance, a client would either ping ourselves, it could be one of you that maybe ping me and say, hey, listen, one of our clients have got an incident or something weird. Please, can you help us? It would then be my task to then get on the call and basically ask all the leading questions, scope it accurately. So many hours we need. It's going to cost you this much. Most of the clients are retainer clients, so it's pretty simple and very, very quick to do this. And then I basically just mobilize the team, and either if I have to lead the case myself, which a lot of the times I do, or I have to find a case lead that would do it, plus assign the roles. And
sorry.
No. That's about it. That's literally a very, very high level, the workflow.
Just to clear the jargon, what do you mean by retainer clients?
So a retainer is what we would see as a subscription. So literally, the difference between coming back to consultancy, so life before IBM, although we had the same in my previous employers as well, is we had an annual subscription, or we called it a retainer, literally where you have all the pre-agreements and the contract work squared off with the client beforehand. So when an incident hits, there's no more, oh, please, it's going to cost you this much. Please, can we do background checks on your company? And that doesn't happen. It's
You can
just
hit the ground running, basically.
yeah. I still
And-
remember that from the Big Four days, is the conflict check and the background check. And
You have not paid the bills.
Yeah.
yeah. It's the house is on fire. Our data is walking out the door. No. I need to do a conflict check first.
Actually, that's okay. Sorry, just on that, right? So you turn up, right? Imagine there's an incident, you get called in, and I guess these are people that you may have done workshops with, maybe, but I mean, could you be turning up and literally they know you're from, so you're from IBM, right?
Yeah.
So they know where you're from, but they don't really know you from Adam, right? And they could be having the worst day of their lives. How does that go, right? Because
I will give you like a real life example, because that happened last year. Round about October last year, one of our global clients suffered like a serious major issue where the global operations were down for 2 weeks, flat down, dead. A month before that, we ran a tabletop with them, and it was so interesting because it was a tabletop on ransomware, and we ran it in APAC. But the Canadian office also participated. We during the incidents, I mean, or during the tabletop, there was lots of discussions and names. You know, this is who we are. This is what that person does, so forth. The incident happened. It was a Sunday night when they called in. Monday, the same individual that was on the tabletop with us was proper, like super frustrated. He was just not happy in life, and but like really frustrated. I think the Tuesday afternoon we had a call. The Tuesday evening I landed in the country, and I met with him, or him. He arrived from Canada about a week later. But throughout this whole thing, every day on the calls, like, this should be done like this should be done like that. And then when he arrived in country, and I was like, hi, so and so, remember me from the tabletop? Yes, so I'm the one running the case. Oh yeah, you guys are doing a fantastic job. This is brilliant stuff.
Slightly awkward, slightly.
And I was like, okay, so what just happened this past week? I don't get that part.
So maybe it's also good to clarify a little bit, because you already mentioned that you had a case with ransomware, but ransomware is not the only type of incident that you come across, right? So can you give a couple of examples of those? So
very far and few between. We do get the very odd midnight call to say, actually no, that's more the during the day call to say, oh, listen, we have a mailbox that seems compromised. So the typical business email compromise. I would say 2 years ago, that was still one of the most typical calls that we would get. Please come and help with business email compromise. So Office 365 or Exchange or some sort of a mail system, somebody lost their credentials and clicked on the wrong link or something stupid. Then we also had, I would say, Ddos attacks also come through often. I would say often, not as much as ransomware, but often. But with Ddos, it's a little bit different in the sense that there's very little you can do about it. I mean, we can do a lot of threat intelligence around it, you know, to find out where these IPs are. Is there a particular threat actor behind it? Understand the IP domain reputation, threat actor attribution. Is this targeted? Why is this happening? But ultimately, it really comes down to the question to the client: have you got DDoS mitigation technology in place? No. Well, okay, you have a problem. It's just that simple.
Plus they can only go to their ISPs, I guess, right?
Exactly.
In this, yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes we say to the guys, if the ISP, if you can increase your subscription again, because it's again all about subscription. The more you pay, the more protection you'll get. That's it. That's step one. Uh, Sometimes the guys say, no, well, sorry, we just don't have that option. We cannot do it. We literally have to deal with this ourselves. Then you go, okay, well, let's look at your firewall. Let's look at your routers. Is there functionality that you can turn on that would mitigate this? Because you can.
You can.
But
Or
it
it's
depends on
limited.
what they have.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've had clients that literally the advice was, maybe you should buy another device with these features on and plug it in front of it, as in now, or go to the ISP.
Yep.
It's and then I would say, yeah, most of it, like seriously, most of it is ransomware. That's
Yeah,
literally all we
your
do.
bread and butter. So like a question on this, right? This has been sort of going through my mind for a few days because it's all in the news, right? It's all over the place.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I have noticed is that cybercrime seems to be one of the few types of crime that we victim blame. Now, and I know, we can, all right, it's legitimate maybe to a certain extent in the sense that there are cyber basics, hygiene, things that people don't do. What I'm interested in is when you turn up, is it always firefighting after the fact? Do you do prevention and education and try and say, we'll try and get you into good shape so that if and when this happens, it's not cataclysmic, it's not going to destroy your business. But if you do turn up right in an incident and you realize that part of the reason the situation is so bad is that there were really basic things that weren't done, just kind of like, how do you stop yourself from judging them?
Very difficult. And I think that's where the consultancy element comes in quite strongly. Being very honest on this though, because one of the key things what I have to do, and particularly the case leads when we, although as I said, I do the scoping, but one of the first things we always say is we want to understand root cause. What happened that allowed this, or not what happened, it's more like what vulnerability was there? What did somebody click on something?
Entry
Was the system down? Yeah. And it's, the root cause can be literally so many things, like systems were not patched, user awareness was not done, so they don't know what to click, what not to click. VMS, so vulnerability management is not in place, so outdated patches. It's to that point. I often, when I do public speaking or meetings around ransomware, I still remember, and I started doing this when I was still in South Africa. I said to people, and I always used to ask the question to the audience, what is the most and the only thing in an environment that makes ransomware so successful? And I'll ask all three of you right now, because it comes back to the same question you had, Anna. So ask a question to you guys now.
Permissions?
Permissions.
Human pride.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing that it's something to do with the level of panic you feel because you feel you've got no options, right? In terms of that you haven't prepared, or you just feel you have no other option, that paying the ransom is the only way out.
Yeah. Okay. So the financial side. Okay. You've actually answered your own question just now.
Oh.
When you said making the basic mistakes. So if you think of this, the only reason why ransomware or malware, but ransomware in particular, is so successful is you exploit a vulnerability. How do you fix a vulnerability? You patch.
Yeah.
If you don't patch, you're screwed. It's just that simple. And that's the one thing that we see all the time is, I had a case now this weekend, and it came in on Friday night. Same story, data walked out the door, imminent risk of ransomware. This is another thing quickly on ransomware. That also changed over the years. People used to think, okay, I get held ransom to get my data
Mm-hmm.
get access to my data. It's not get my data back, it's get access to my data. The data never left. Nowadays, it's not like that anymore. Your data has gone long time before that ransom hits. They've taken everything they needed to take. So now when you look at it, it's more around, okay, I actually need to pay somebody now to really get my data back.
Mm-hmm.
And the fundamental problems that we still see is typical stuff. And this is like security 101 or 101. Don't use administrator accounts on machines. Don't allow people to log on and install stuff. Don't let the browser run in administrator mode or a system level, because you can do whatever you want to. So we
Segment your
see that.
network.
Yeah, we see that all the time. And the thing is that what we always say to clients is, as much as we do root cause analysis, so to understand what went wrong, and we start doing this, the next phase, so the containment and eradication, very, very quickly, because you've got to stop the lateral movement and propagation of the malware. But by doing that, you already start looking at remediation. And that we then break up into short-term, medium, long-term remediation. So it's difficult to say to clients, you guys are actually at fault for this. It's very difficult. And here's the thing, though, it comes to, I would say, European clients, American clients, you can, to a certain extent, do that, and they will openly admit it and say, yeah, look, it was part of the projects. We just didn't get to it.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot be that direct or blunt with an Oriental client. It's just not possible.
Yeah.
You cannot do that. You cannot put guilt on them. You cannot tell them they at fault. You cannot say to them they are wrong.
Yeah.
It's rather something needs to be improved, and we will help you improve. So you really,
gentle.
you really have to understand in the culture also behind the company.
Yeah.
Philosophy.
Well, that kind of makes sense. So we've discussed a little bit about what kind of incidents you have, what kind of workflow you have. Let's discuss skills.
Sure.
Before we go into skills, I wanted to, because Eben, you talked about the two different types of incident responders. So the first type that you said, are just sitting behind the screen. How are they different from these security operations center analysts?
A little bit, I would say. Now it depends again, because if you think about it, you get level 1, level 2, level 3 security analysts, and literally the higher up you go with the numbers, the more skills you need, the more senior the person, and the more you move towards the forensic side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But it literally comes down to, and I think Jennifer, maybe you will remember from the Big Four consultancy e-discovery days, when you take massive amount of volume data and you bring it down to the manageable components that you can triage or can process.
Funneling, right?
Yeah. So with each of those levels, that's literally what's happening. Your level 1 person would need to understand, I have to rely, or I can rely, not I have to, I can rely on the technology and its AI and its threat intelligence feeds and its algorithms to determine if something is suspicious or malicious. The technology,
if that's available, at least, because not all organizations have that.
True, and that's a very, very good point as well. So one thing that will happen is the technology will pop up the alert and say, look, based on this criteria, we flagged it as suspicious. Somebody now needs to triage this. So level 1 person would go through all of these alerts and then, okay, this is false positive. This really looks weird. I don't know quite what it is, but it needs to be checked, and so forth. Next person, same story. The thing that when you get more to like your level 3, and then level 3 would escalate into like the emergency response or the deep forensic stuff, which is like where we go, or the your more malware reverse engineering. I think, Faith, you also do that, right?
Hello?
Yeah. So that is then where we take a little bit more time, because think about it. Level 1, level 2 is really about getting through the big numbers. Level 3 and I would say kind of us as 4, we need to understand what are we dealing with, so that whatever results we have needs to, one, come back again. So we teach the system, this is how you should be actually responding to this, or crap, we have an issue, we need to investigate. So there's different skill sets that you need for the levels. Yeah.
Yeah. Jennifer?
Makes sense. Yeah, so as mentioned before, skill sets. What would you expect an incident responder to be able to do, and what kind of profile would you be looking for?
So incident responders. So let's come back to difference again between incident response and digital forensics.
Yeah.
So the two of them cover things, or cover almost the same thing, with the difference that the incident response field requires you to look at incidents at scale. That's the big difference. It's at scale. This is the key point. So the one, you don't have time to look at everything, but you need a skilled person. So this is going to be a person that knows the Windows environment, as an example. I mean, if they see, I'll give you a perfect example. Happened this morning. Fobhelper.exe. It's a component that allows you to install features on a machine. So here's an alert that pops up and says, well, this binary ran. This is a problem. Like, why? So the forensic analyst would say, it's a legitimate binary, but okay, I can manipulate it. This could be an issue.
Yeah.
Move on. So it's a person that would understand the internal operations of Windows itself. The same would be true for Linux or Mac or network, whatever. So in other words, it comes down to an IT specialist first and foremost.
Yep.
That's how I started off in forensics. I was an IT specialist, not forensics or security. So, but if you can build something, you can take it apart. So that's what you need to know. Then you need to understand the security element of it, is to say, based on these IT principles or systems, what can I abuse to get where I want to be? So you add the security element to it. And then the forensic side is literally just where you put the two together and understand, okay, this is what you did with this. You try to cover your tracks, but we still have it, or we can find other artifacts where you can actually get it back again.
Yeah.
So come back to, like, that's more or less the profile that you're looking for. Typically, like certifications and those kind of things, you would need like your SANS. I mean, SANS is by far the most recognized certifications that you would need.
Yeah.
Then you could also look at more like the digital forensics specific certifications, as well as tooling specific certifications. Here's another example. If, for instance, you want to present a report in court, this for us was on the South African side a very, very true statement. It used to be the same in North America or America. I'm not sure if it's still the same, but Germany, I think, is also still, where we as analysts had to hold a certificate in the tooling that we used.
Yeah.
I was also one of those guys that used to go in discredit cases and discredit people's work. And it was so easy. It's 3 simple questions and you discredit the person, and by discrediting the person, you discredit all the work that they've done.
Yeah.
Don't say the first question was, do you have a certificate?
Absolutely. It's so, the thing is though, it's really so stupid that it's dumb questions like that. All you have to do is just put doubt on the whole thing. That's it. Simple things. What certification do you hold? How long have you been doing this work for? so and so and so. Okay, great. If they have the certifications, if they have the experience, then you would ask, take me through your workflow, your process, your evidence collection. Simple thing again. Point one, I collected this, or let's take digital stuff. I collected this phone from you. Okay, great. And you let the person explain, blah, blah, blah. They give you all the findings, everything looks incriminating. And say, I just want to ask, how did you collect this device from the owner? Oh, well, they just gave it to me. So, okay. Is there a document? We call it chain of custody. Did you sign that? Yeah. And they would say, yeah, we did all of that. Okay.
Show me.
Show me. And then the typical thing, and we used to have this in law enforcement, we always had this rule also. If you collected something, two people have to be always present with that. One goes to the shop, one goes wherever, one stays. And we used to ask the same question. It's like, okay, where did you guys go? Okay, so you stopped here for lunch. Sure. Did you take the evidence with you? No, we left it in the car. Did somebody touch it? No, they didn't. How do you know?
You were not there.
Stupid. No, that's the thing. That's literally how it goes. You just need to, you put doubt on everything.
Yeah.
A phone is probably the worst thing, because you say to them, okay, you collected the device. Did you wrap it in a what do we call it, a magnetic bag, so it would block the signal? Sometimes they would say yes, sometimes they would say no. So, okay, if you didn't have a bag, just at least put it in flight mode. You can't turn it off, because the risk is if you turn it off, you could lose evidence. Yeah. So then here's the tricky part. If you put a phone in a magnetic bag and you put the cable, so like this, but the bag is now over, but the cable is sticking out, all you've done is you've given it a beautiful antenna. So you bypass the magnetics. And why do you have to put a cable on? Because you didn't take the charger, you just took the phone. So, stupid things like that. And then for instance, you take the chain of custody document, you say, okay, you took it here. However, though, and you gave it back on this day. So here's the two date ranges. Why do I see file modification dates right in the middle when you had the device? So that means the device was switched on. Forensic principles always work with offline evidence.
Yeah.
And that is another difference between digital forensics, IR/IR. IR would work very much on live evidence. Big difference. So it's different principles that we have to apply.
And what you've mentioned so far is mostly technical skills. But what are other qualities or other type of expertise that you would look for in a profile?
That was, sorry, on that, right? Because it was exactly that same question. I was kind of thinking, right, so you've got these amazing techie people, right? Do you have to have somebody who kind of takes the customer and says, would you please stay out of our way?
Yeah. So that's also kind of like hand in hand with the career path of an incident responder. Because when they start off their career, keep them away from a client. It's the worst idea to say to an analyst or like a level 1, level 2 analyst, yeah, you need to go and speak to the client. It's the worst idea. No, you just don't do that. So one is you need to have somebody that can, okay, let's look at team levels. So from level 1, level 2 analyst, or whatever you want to call it, you need to have somebody that is one disciplined, that can take or self-discipline. Actually, maybe that's more the best word. Is you cannot rely on or not rely on them, but to instruct them. You have to do this. You must do this. Now you should do this. This is something that you as an individual need to say, I want to do this. Yeah. So I want to do it because I'm curious. I want to solve the problem. I want to build the puzzle.
Yeah.
That's the key point that you have in level 1, level 2, is the curiosity. I want to solve the problem. I want to figure out what is yes. So you got to be inquisitive. When you get to the higher levels, then it's becoming now more the thing of saying, I have to be a true consultant. I have to be able to take a technical element and translate it and describe it in a non-technical way that client, C-suite, board can understand. And then again, then there's no long opportunities for long discussions. It's short and sweet. This is what happened. This is what we found. This is how you can fix it. And patience, and more patience.
Plus also the ability to work under pressure, right? Because it's during an incident and everyone is screaming. So ability to withstand it.
Yeah, and there's something that like we this is something I'm particularly quite passionate about in teams and in my own team and our European team as well, which we try our utmost best to, if we see it, we try and fix it very, very quickly. But that is to enforce the element of we work as a team. We are as strong as the weakest player in the team. That's hands down. You do get, I would say, team leads or leaders, or I wouldn't call them leaders, I would probably just call them managers, that want to do everything themselves. They want to do all the client call, they want to do this, they want to shout all the instructions.
They want to shine.
That's it. That's it. And to be honest with you, that doesn't work. It really doesn't. You got to have the whole team spirit of saying, you know what, when crap hits the fan, we're going to solve this as a team. If the client calls, you know, oh crap, yeah, it's we as a team need to solve this. So it's very much that camaraderie thing as well.
And what about, there's some times that you'll go and put off the fire, right? And then you tell the customer that everything is okay. And then after a few months,
it happens again.
It happens again. How often have you come across that, and what would you how do you handle that?
I would say I'm smiling because it happens quite a lot. Really, it happens quite a lot. And it happens to like seriously big organizations, but in that is the problem. It takes too long for them to actually incorporate all the recommendations and the remediation. It takes too long. By the time they implement a project to take care of VMS or patch management or IIM or PAM, that in itself is 6 months to a year. So if, for instance, if I take an example of again, ransomware, the key thing what we need to find very, very quickly is all the back doors, because there will be back doors. That's how these guys get in and out. Done. That's it. If we don't find any back doors in an environment during a ransomware case, then it means we did not find the root cause. So, and this is what I'm having now with a client from Friday. Saturday, I mean, we started Friday night. Saturday morning, they said, okay, investigation done. And we were like, how do you get to this? This is not possible. Now we want to rebuild the environment. We want to do remediation. So to come back now to your question, Faith, I said to them, unless you replace every single device in that environment with hardened security settings, with absolutely more than best practice hardening, you are at risk. You will get impacted again.
You will stay in a resume breach situation.
Yeah. So a lot of the times it does come back to, did you guys implement? We have a client that phones us every 2 months, business email compromise. It's stock standard. We all see the number and we're like,
oh, it's you.
Hey, how you doing?
First question I asked during the scoping call, it's the first question. Have you guys implemented MFA? No. Please go and do that, because whatever this is, change all the passwords, because we cannot, you're not listening. You know, it's obviously we don't say it like that, but
it makes you wonder though, because no offense, but incident response services are not exactly cheap. if they keep
No.
They got the money.
No, but it's easier to spend, right? It's easier to spend than to kind of mobilize across divisions and get the consensus and the buy-in. It's easier just to kind of, we'll kind of outsource the problem. But it's funny you were saying, right? You know, we kind of say there's an expression that lightning never strikes twice. There was a headline in one of the things I was reading today about, and it's like 80% of the companies that actually pay ransom in the case of ransomware get hit again.
Yep.
Because they validated themselves as a great target.
Oh.
And they've left the back doors.
Yeah.
That is the problem, because we and I'm really honest about this. We had a couple of cases where, and we have seen this increase also, where one clients pay, or clients come to us, like, and particularly this is more like the ad hoc clients. So companies that don't have a retainer with us, but they call us for advice or something. And then we explain the whole process to them. And a lot of the times, particularly when they are virtualized environments, where the actual hosted server is encrypted, that means you stuffed. There's no ways you're going to recover unless you have backups.
Yeah.
So then your next question, have you got backups? No. It's like, okay, you have to rebuild from scratch.
And I got a question about the backups. Even though they have backups, how can we validate that the backups are actually
Not
clean?
Now, that in itself already started, man, I was like, when was I still sysadmin? About 20 years ago? That's when it already started, where we had engines that could scan the backup tape itself. So as the backup was made, it started scanning it. But same as any AV, if the signature is out of date, it's useless. So when you look at recovering data, the key thing, and this is now where the forensic side comes into play very, very importantly, we have to understand the timeline of any incident. So what was the earliest attacker activity? Because that will dictate when I can sort of trust my data. If and we've seen this plenty of times, clients just, they want to get the business up, so they restore data that they think is up, and they reinfect it. So huge problem. The way you deal with that, though, is you have to restore in a side or parallel environment, scan the data, make sure that it works. If it is fine, nothing else on it, then you can bring it into the environment. But your timeline, dictates which backup tape you restore.
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunities there, right, for making bad decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming back to your earlier question earlier about when you said, you know, it's kind of like the victim is to blame at the moment. But here's the thing that I see very different. And Faith, I'm not sure if you saw the same on the African side, but what we used to do quite a lot, particularly because I worked with law enforcement also for about 6 years. Every case that we did, even as the Big Four, we tackled with the intention of finding the perpetrator, and we did. We found the perpetrators and we put them behind bars. If I now take, since I've been in Europe, was about 5 years now, a lot of it is, there's a bad actor. The bad actor came in. Yes, this is the bad actor. We all know him, but we could never arrest him.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that little part of the, I know why it is like that, but sometimes I wonder, as industry, can we not do more?
So just on that, right, there was another article that was published that I thought was a really interesting idea. It was somebody from the ex-military in Israel who said, what we need is like a World Health Organization, but for cyber. And what he meant by that was that there's a lot of shame and stigma attached to being attacked. And yet, if, for example, right, COVID, right, not all countries in the world are performing equally well in how they're managing the pandemic. But we're not pointing fingers as much, right? It's a bad situation for everybody, and we're encouraged to share information. I was just wondering, you know, what's your sort of take on that idea that for reasons of liability, for reasons of reputation, human shame and the stigma, my impression is that we don't share that much really, and yet there would be huge value potentially from more horizontal intelligence sharing, information sharing, learning. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, 100%. And the thing is, I'll actually add another layer onto that. I'm going to bring it back again to traditional financial fraud. Years ago, I used to be part of the South African banking fraud committee. What we also used to do is this committee used to meet, it's like every 2 months. But what it was about was all the forensic investigators or fraud investigators from the financial institutions with law enforcement, with magistrates, with whoever. And we all sat around this to do exactly this, share with each other. And, it was like at the time, I'm always going to say it's like the historic time when we used to use checks. Remember that thing, piece of paper? So it was around that, this is the methodology, how they did it. And everybody was like, oh crap, yeah, we got to look out for this. Credit cards, same story. Now, one thing that we had to make sure though, and I think that is the problem we're dealing with on the cyber side, is one, the fear of being targeted as the victim, but also to be incriminated, because you now suddenly share your information, and when you share it, you also provide your weaknesses. And I'm sorry to say, but I also investigated syndicates, and I had my own captain. My one captain was part of a syndicate, and we could never understand why things went wrong in our cases, or some cases, until we found him. And it happens. It really, really and truly happens. As much as we are after intelligence, so are these guys.
Yeah.
And the other thing, what I also think is really wrong, is people don't trust each other to share that information. That's a big issue.
But are you seeing a change?
We definitely are.
Changing a little bit, right?
Yeah. Look at this committee that was also, I think it was in CNN also last week or something, where they also made it very, says task force, oh man, what is it? It's on the American side, where they also had this huge committee with all the people that said about particularly ransomware incidents. These are the threat actors you've got to be careful of. This is how you should be looking at all of this. That is definitely changing. A lot more companies and service providers like us are participating in these things. Law enforcement is becoming more involved in this. And also on the other side, law enforcement are sharing again with us. Because this is something really that we speak about this all the time. When you comes back again to the law enforcement side, to get one step ahead of the criminal or the attacker or the adversary, I need intelligence on that adversary. So I need to get to the first level or the root source of that intelligence. If we don't get to that, we're going to struggle. We will always be 2, 3, 4, 5 steps behind.
Do you think it's a sign of the industry maturing slowly?
I think so. I really think so, because I would say up to about maybe 5 years ago, I would say, particularly again, and I looked at it more from the insider threat perspective as an example. In Europe, as an employer and employees and colleagues, we tend to trust each other very easily and very, very, I'll say, very easy and very quickly.
Let's have a coffee.
Yeah, let's have a coffee, let's talk. And, we rely on a system to do the monitoring and alerting for us. And I'm talking now about simply just walking into a building, swapping your card, whatever. But your biggest threat are the people walking around with you, because we trust them. So the flip side of saying, we are not trusting each other to share that information within a controlled environment. We, on the other hand, make the big mistake of just trusting too easily, and we share with the wrong people. And I think personally, I think that's where the problem is still standing. We don't know the balance yet.
And a quick question with regards to the trust factor. I know you've mentioned that we're seeing more ransomware cases. What of insider threats? How often do you come across that? How prevalent are they?
That's also a bit of an interesting question. That definitely depends on region. I would say 100% depends on region.
Name and shame.
Unfortunately. Unfortunately, you know, I was explaining to our team a while ago when I joined them, and I said, listen, you guys all investigate external adversaries. That's not what we did in Africa. That you waste your time with an external person. It's so what? So what? They're going to send you malware. What's that going to do? Steal your data? Yeah, that's nothing. This is your people sitting next to you. That's the biggest problem. That's what we investigated. So on the Africa side, I mean, yeah, I remember 2011, 2012 was the first ransomware incident that I investigated. I kid you not, I had zero idea that I was dealing with ransomware. We didn't know. This was like,
We're looking at your
damn.
sisters and brothers.
Yeah, it's like, damn, we don't understand this. They got into the system, they stole Bitcoin. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We understand that. So they steal money.
Fair enough.
But they encrypt systems and they crash everything. Yeah, what is this? Why? You know?
Voodoo is this, right?
Oh yeah. I had a guy once in Lesotho when I took them through forensic digital forensics, and I showed them how we recovered data. This guy ran out the door and he said, "This is black magic." He ran out the door. Never saw him again.
What?
That is true story in
I
Lesotho.
can't.
Oh wow.
In Lesotho, it happened. And so to come back to the question, if we now take on the European side, we've actually, and the weirdest thing is, if you had asked me this question about a month ago, I would have said to you, I've not heard of it for the last 5 years. This last month, we've had three cases.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I'm currently busy. I think, Jennifer, remember I said earlier that I'm busy with a report that I really struggled to finish. That's one of them. That is an insider threat. That case is going to court.
There's an interesting article earlier this week about needing to invest in train interest in it. I was chatting to some business people in security, and they kind of went, Jesus, would you stop bothering us with that kind of stuff? We have proper work to do. And I was there kind of going, but how can we really shut our eyes to that, right? Okay, yeah. So, and the reason that I'm sort of sensitive to it is a friend of mine who used to work in Canadian law enforcement, and he has this saying, which is, somebody passed on to him, you know, you may think, you may not care about geopolitics, but believe me, geopolitics cares about you. You're a person of interest, whether you know it or not, or whether you want to be or not. And this disinclination that we acknowledge that we might be in a company or in a role that other people are interested in, particularly in certain industries. There are countries out there that have publicly published the industries of interest, and there are 10 of them. And you're kind of going, how can we really not take notice of that?
Yeah. We, you know, the thing is, and again, that's what I'm saying, it is very, very much focused at geographic region, very, very much. I've seen like chemical companies. This is one of them, a chemical waste company in Africa. Also, they operate global. We were called in. I was at the Big Four at the time. We were called in, and they said there's a very, very strong allegation that our competitor, our biggest competitor in the market, has our full client list.
Oh.
Now, that's IP, that's business, it's everything. It's not necessarily reputation at that point, because it's not about they took our data. This is about I'm going to lose money from this. That's the problem here. Business, that's it. And what we found was a guy that worked for them for 15 years, most loyal person that they knew in that organization. They trusted him with everything, absolutely everything. Day before he kind of resigned because he just walked out the door, he printed tons and tons of lists of paper. Now, this again, is Africa times, we don't really, there's no such thing as like you email something to somebody, you print it and you walk out with it.
No one said anything.
You're shaming us, man.
No, but the thing is, what is the easiest way to walk out? I've seen people that walk out of companies with computers, and I'm not talking about a laptop, I'm talking about a desktop computer in a handbag. And
that's a pretty damn big handbag.
Yep.
I can't laugh anymore.
You've never seen how they operate in Africa. Faith knows exactly the kind of bags I'm talking about.
I've actually not worked in Africa, but I know the bags you're talking about.
You know exactly the ones I'm talking about. You can fit an entire desktop machine in that bag. And that's the thing, though. It is really that risk. It's to understand your most trusted person, that you are actually at risk of that person.
Yeah.
You know, the very, very first person that I arrested when I switched over to law enforcement, and it's not that I went permanent. I was what they call an ad hoc assignment or assigned individual, where I did a lot of it was COVID stuff. So people didn't really know me or what I did and why I was there. But the first person I arrested was a guy I trained personally. I trained this guy for 8 years. We were like this, very, very close to each other. So when it comes to the insider threat element, that hit me home very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, and when it comes to advocating and saying, yes, we do need to worry on the outside. We do need to protect the perimeter. And there's a lot that we do there. But I am seeing a shift where we're putting so much emphasis on that.
Perimeter, yeah?
Perimeter again?
Yeah.
We are forgetting about the inside.
Yeah.
I guess it boils down to trust, but verify, right?
Yeah. The thing, though, is if I look again, and this is the key point or biggest problem when it comes to an insider threat, they would always, if it's not one person that's going to do this by themselves, or if it's like an organized crime group that would, we always say, compromise people to get access to systems, it's going to be people that don't really have monitoring enabled on them. Cleaners, administrators, facilities, there's a lot. And particularly when it comes to the administrators, who's going to monitor the monitor?
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah.
It's literally that simple. And I've seen so many times we come in with proposals around, you need to have privileged access management, you need to have monitoring in place. But I still ask the question at some point, who is going to review or assess the person that's at the end of the day doing that final review?
Yeah.
Do you now add another layer?
Proper auditing. Yeah.
4I principle. Yeah.
So also looking at the time, I mean, I'm loving the conversation that we're having, but we're also looking a little bit at time. Maybe one final question from my side. Sure. What would be the advice that you would give to someone starting out in the IR business, in the digital forensic business?
First thing I would say, same principle is around what you can build, you can take apart.
Right.
Understand the playground, understand what you're going to deal with. So computers, networks, IT, you got to understand that. Then you got to understand how would people want to attack this. So typically pen testing stuff. And this is where I think companies like Black Hills Information Security with John Strand.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I
love that guy. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah.
The amount of shout outs that they're getting, by the way, in this podcast is crazy.
No, but the thing is, what I like about his approach or their approach is not just about John Strand, but it's his approach is not just here's a book. It's literally about, you know what, guys, let's keep it real and let's make it practical.
Yeah.
I think Jennifer, you know me already. I'm
Mm-hmm.
frameworks. I know, yes, and I go, whatever. Does it work? And that's why I like the Black Hill security guys.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. The training courses that they provide, super cheap. They have all of those. What's it? Pay as you go.
Pay as you want or something. Yeah.
Pay as you
What you
want.
can,
Yeah,
is it? Yeah.
yeah, or pay as you can. Whatever. I've done I think all three of them,
Mm-hmm.
and it was literally just like, yeah.
And learning something new every time, right?
I was
In
gonna
all
say,
three of them.
and here's the cool thing: you've got the VM with the labs on it, and you can go back and play whenever you want to.
I got it.
So I was actually busy mentoring a person outside of forensics and outside of IR, and I said to this individual, it's like, listen, you know what? You understand scripting, you understand threat intelligence, you understand IT. So the next level is now you need to understand how you can actually attack this and how you can exploit all of this. First thing I said, go and take these three courses. Here's the VM, there's the labs, go play. And he was like, wow, this is cool.
Yeah.
And then I would say is, then you can start looking at where do you want to more specialize? Do you want to more specialize in IR or forensics or like cybersecurity strategy or policies, procedures? And then you can start diversing into what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you
But
need to
you've
know the
got to,
basics.
that's it. That's the same thing. My advice always to people was, you don't get a driver's license when you buy a new car. It's just, you don't do that. You know how to drive a car. That's the basics. This is what we got to do in our industry.
Yeah.
I have a question. I want to put you on the spot, Eben,
Oh.
because I know that
The line is drag, Faith.
you know, as someone who's actually been hiring people, one thing that I have realized is we have very few, as someone who's been hiring and as someone who's technical, one thing that I've realized is we have very few girls in our line. So what can we do to change that?
So here's one of the key points. I would say what the three of you are doing is already one step massively in the right direction. It's
Thank you.
No, but I mean, seriously, one of my direct, I don't like to use the word reports because she's in my team and I work with her every day.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not I've got the titles and everything, but I'm not a manager that just gives instructions. I'm there with you. Let's do it together. And as part of her development or guidance, what I said to her, for instance, was, you are the ambassador now for ladies in your environment, as well as your friendship groups, your network. It actually, as much as I'm saying it, I'm still a man. So the question comes back to me, what are you changing?
Yeah.
So, without me walking and saying, well, okay, I'll resign. Let's employ somebody else.
Girl.
Yeah. Besides that, the next thing I can do is rather say and support ladies like yourself and like her and say, you know what, find those opportunities, look for those opportunities, spread the word. And I can tell you guys, if I look at particularly in our global team, I'm looking now at the last 5 or 6 people that joined the team. I would say 3 of them ladies. And
that's quite okay.
I've had, and I promise you this, it's not that you go like, oh yeah, they were hired because they're ladies. No ways. Absolutely no ways. They rock. They literally, they work harder than anybody else because they understand, man, I love doing this. I have an opportunity. And I think that's what we overall miss is that hunger to learn.
Yeah.
Overall, whether you're man or woman. That's we don't see that enough. But I agree with you that overall it has to change. And it should not be a matter of then you get a lady in a position and then suddenly it's like, oh, now in the management position, you will do as I say.
Mm-mm.
Stay humble. That's the key message.
Mhm.
Stay
Thank
humble.
you. Thank you.
So big shout out to what you two all three are doing. Really good.
Yay.
Well, thanks for being part of it.
Mhm.
Yes.
Oh, awesome.
It was a really good conversation, and I think that
Yeah.
actually gave a pretty damn good overview of what an incident responder does.
And maybe a little bit more than just incident responder.
Very
this
true.
was like industry skills transfer, insights. No, but it was cool. I really enjoyed it. And hence what I'm saying again is I'm a huge advocate of helping people understand career opportunities, understanding growth opportunities. But one thing I absolutely, and I must be honest, I despise it as a pet hate, is the me, myself, and I. And I'm so good, it was whatever. It's just, I don't like it. It's forums like this where you can really make the difference, and spread the word. I think that's the key thing. Spread the word.
I think that is a very good closing comment.
Yeah.
Loving the community.
Yes.
Okay, last round. Anyone still wants to give a final thought, comment, input, whatever?
No, thank you to Eben.
Cool stuff.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Eben. Yes.
And all the best for the upcoming sessions. Really hope you guys do good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, last thing, for the viewers, like and subscribe, spread the word, and if you want to participate, like Eben himself, on a topic that you want to discuss with us or discuss with the world, please let us know.
Yay.
Guys.
Toodles.
Ciao.
Bye.